I was folding towels when my phone rang. It was a Tuesday morning in October, the kind of October where the sun still feels like summer, but the air has that sharpness that tells you winter is coming. I had been pulling towels out of the dryer one by one, fluffing them, folding the edges in. My grandmother taught me how to fold towels when I was 7 years old. She said, "A woman who folds her towels with care folds her life with care." I believed her for 60 years. The towels were blue, pale blue, the color of a nursery for a baby that never came. I bought them 7 years ago when my daughter Emily was pregnant with my first grandchild. I thought I would use those towels to dry that baby's skin after baths in the sink of my guest bathroom. I thought I would smell baby shampoo and powder every Sunday afternoon. That baby was born, a boy, Samuel. I held him for 17 minutes in the hospital before my daughter-in-law took him back. Not Emily. Emily is my daughter. This was my son's wife. Her name is Jessica. Jessica took Samuel back and said he needed to eat. I said, of course. I sat in the plastic chair by the window and watched the parking lot fill up with cars. I thought about how many years I had waited to be a grandmother, how many baby showers I attended for other women, how many times I smiled and said congratulations, and meant it, but also felt that small, sharp pain behind my ribs. Then my son Mark finally got married at 42. Then Jessica got pregnant at 44. Then I was going to be a grandmother at 68. I was ready. I had a drawer full of board books. I had a crocheted blanket I made myself, even though my arthritis made my fingers hurt. I had a savings account with $8,000 for Samuel's future. The phone kept ringing. I looked at the screen. It was my lawyer, a woman named Helen who had gray hair cut short like a helmet and glasses on a chain around her neck. Helen only called me when something was bad. Not urgent, bad. There is a difference. Urgent means we need to move fast. Bad means we already lost. I answered. Helen said they filed a motion to dismiss my appeal. The probate court in Clark County. Judge Margaret Hollister, a woman I had never met but who now held my entire life in her hands. Helen said the motion was aggressive. She said Jessica's lawyer was asking for sanctions, attorney fees, court costs, a finding that my lawsuit was frivolous, a public record saying I was a bitter old woman wasting the court's time. Helen said the hearing was set for November 14th, 3 weeks away. I said, okay. I said, thank you for letting me know. I hung up. The towel was half folded in my lap. I stared at it for a long time. Then I finished folding it. I stacked it on top of the others. I walked to my kitchen and poured a glass of water. I drank it standing at the sink, looking at my backyard. The grass was brown in patches. The fence needed painting. The bird feeder was empty. My husband, Daniel, used to fill that bird feeder every morning before he made his coffee. He died 4 years ago. The bird feeder has been empty for 4 years. Sometimes I think about filling it. Then I think about how he would laugh at me if he saw me trying to climb that little stepladder with my bad knee. Then I don't fill it. I want to tell you what happened. Not the legal version. Not the version my son tells his friends. Not the version Jessica posts on Facebook about toxic family members and boundaries and protecting her peace. I want to tell you the real version, the one that lives in my chest like a piece of glass that shifts every time I breathe. My name is Diane. I am 72 years old. I have 2 children. Mark is 46. Emily is 43. I was married to Daniel for 41 years. He was a good husband. Not perfect. No one is perfect. But he was good. He came home every night. He fixed things that broke. He held my hand in the car. He told me I was beautiful, even when my hair turned gray and my skin got thin and my body started folding into itself like a paper crane. He loved me. I know he loved me. That is the only thing I still know for sure. Daniel was a carpenter. Custom cabinets, high-end kitchens for people with too much money and not enough taste. He worked hard. His hands were always rough with calluses and small scars from blades and splinters. He used to run those hands over my back at night when we lay in bed watching the news. Just a slow back and forth, like he was sanding something smooth. I fell asleep that way for 30 years. We bought our house in 1988, a 3-bedroom ranch on a quiet street in a town called Oak Grove. Not a fancy town, just a town. Good schools, a grocery store that knew your name, a diner where the coffee was always burnt, and the waitresses called you honey. We raised Mark and Emily Eyre. They rode their bikes on the sidewalk. They fought over the bathroom. They left dirty socks in the living room. We painted their rooms. We went to parent-teacher conferences. We cried when Mark crashed his first car. We cried when Emily got her heart broken by a boy named Tyler, who did not deserve her. That house was my whole world. Every scratch on the floor, every stain on the counter, every dent in the wall where Mark threw a baseball too hard. Those were the marks of a life lived. I loved that house the way you love a person, deeply, imperfectly, forever. Daniel died in that house, in our bed, on a Thursday morning in March. He had a heart attack while I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth. I heard a sound, like a heavy thing falling. I ran to him. He was on the floor by his side of the bed. His eyes were open, but he was not there anymore. I screamed. I did CPR. I broke one of his ribs. The paramedics came. They tried for 20 minutes. They looked at me with faces I have seen 100 times on television, but never understood until that moment. The face people make when they have bad news and they cannot find the right words. There are no right words. After Daniel died, I could not stay in that house alone. Every room was a memory. Every sound was a ghost. I would hear the garage door open and think he was home. I would smell coffee and think he made it. I would reach for his hand in bed and find only cold sheets. I lasted 8 months. Then I called Mark and told him I was thinking about selling the house, moving into a smaller place, a condo, something manageable. Mark said, "Don't do anything yet. Let me talk to Jessica." That was the first time I heard those words, "Let me talk to Jessica." From that moment on, every decision I made went through Jessica. Where I should live, how I should invest my money, whether I should sell Daniel's truck, whether I should keep his clothes in the closet or donate them. Jessica had opinions about all of it, and Mark had stopped having opinions of his own a long time ago. I just did not know it yet. Jessica came to visit me about a week after that phone call. She showed up with Samuel. He was 2 years old then. Chubby cheeks, big brown eyes like his father. He ran into my house like he owned it. I did not mind. I loved watching him touch things, open drawers, pull books off shelves. I had child-proofed everything. I was ready. I had been ready for years. Jessica sat at my kitchen table with a notebook and a pen. She asked me questions like she was interviewing me for a job. What was the house worth? What was in my savings? What was in my retirement account? Did Daniel have life insurance? Did I have a will? Did I have a trust? I answered everything. I trusted her. She was my daughter-in-law. She was the mother of my grandchild. She was family. Jessica had been a financial planner before Samuel was born. She knew about money. She talked about capital gains and tax implications and estate planning, like other people talk about the weather. I did not understand half of what she said, but I trusted her because Mark trusted her, and I trusted Mark because he was my son. I gave birth to him. I nursed him. I stayed up with him when he had fevers. I drove him to soccer practice and piano lessons and the emergency room when he broke his arm falling out of a tree. I loved him before he had a name. That kind of love does not disappear, even when it should. Jessica said I should not sell the house. She said I should transfer the house to Mark and her for tax reasons. She said if I sold it, I would owe capital gains tax, but if I gifted it to them, they could manage it as a rental property. They would give me the rental income to live on. I could move into a nice apartment. They would handle everything: maintenance, tenants, repairs. I would not have to worry about anything. I said, what about Emily? Jessica said Emily has her own life. Emily lives in Portland. Emily is not here to help you. We are here. We are the ones who will take care of you. That was true. Emily moved to Portland 15 years ago. She married a man named David. They had 2 daughters. They came home for Christmas and Thanksgiving, sometimes for Easter. Emily called me every Sunday at 3 o'clock. She sent me pictures of the girls in their school plays and dance recitals. She loved me. I never doubted that. But she was not there. Not the way Mark was there. Mark lived 20 minutes away. He came over to fix my garbage disposal. He changed the batteries in my smoke detectors. He mowed my lawn. He was there. So I signed the papers. I signed them at Jessica's kitchen table on a Saturday afternoon in May. Samuel was napping upstairs. Mark was grilling chicken on the back porch. Jessica put the papers in front of me, a thick stack, legal language in small font. She pointed to the places where I needed to initial, where I needed to sign, where I needed to date. She said it was a quitclaim deed. She said it transferred my ownership of the house to a trust. She said the trust was called the Thompson Family Trust. Thompson was Daniel's last name, my last name. It sounded right. Family, trust. 2 words that mean everything and nothing at the same time. I did not read the papers. I trusted her. I cannot tell you how many times I have replayed that afternoon in my head. How many times I have imagined myself picking up those papers and reading every single word. How many times I have imagined myself standing up and walking out the door and never looking back. But I did not do any of those things. I signed. I watched my hand move across the page, and I thought about how Daniel would be proud of me for handling things, for not being difficult, for trusting our son. The first year was fine. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town, a complex called Oak Grove Village, mostly older people, widows and widowers, a few divorced men with new girlfriends who were too young for them. I had a balcony that faced a parking lot. I had a kitchen so small I could touch both counters at the same time. I had a bedroom with a closet that smelled like someone else's perfume. I hung Daniel's clothes in that closet anyway. His flannel shirts, his good jeans, his winter coat. I could not let them go. Mark and Jessica rented out my house. They found a family, a young couple with 2 kids. They paid $2,400 a month. Mark said after property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, I would get about $1,500 a month. That was enough for my rent and groceries and my car payment. I was fine. I was not rich, but I was fine. I watched Samuel every Tuesday and Thursday while Jessica went to the gym. I picked him up from preschool. I made him peanut butter sandwiches cut into triangles. I read him the same books over and over until I had them memorized. Goodnight Moon, Where the Wild Things Are, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. He sat in my lap and put his sticky fingers on my face and said, "Grandma, I love you." I believed him. I believed everything. The cracks started small, so small I almost did not see them. Mark stopped coming over to fix things. He said he was busy with work. He said I should call a handyman. I called a handyman, a nice young man named Carlos, who charged $40 an hour. He fixed my leaky faucet. He replaced the garbage disposal. He hung a shelf in my bathroom. I paid him from the money Mark sent me. That was fine. That was what the money was for. Then Mark started sending the money late. 1 month it came on the 10th, the next month on the 15th. Then 1 month it did not come at all. I called him. He said the tenants were late on rent. He said Jessica was handling it. He said, "Don't worry." I worried. I called Jessica. She did not answer. I left a message. She did not call back. I called again. She texted me. "Busy. Talk later." Later did not come. I stopped watching Samuel on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Jessica said she changed her gym schedule. She said she would let me know when she needed me. She never let me know. I went 3 weeks without seeing Samuel, then 4, then 6. I showed up at their house one afternoon with a box of donuts. Jessica answered the door. She looked surprised. Not happy surprised. Not sad surprised. The kind of surprised you feel when someone you forgot about shows up unannounced. She said now is not a good time. I said I just wanted to see Samuel. She said he is napping. I said I could wait. She said, "Diane, I will call you." She called me Diane, not Mom, not Grandma, Diane, like I was a neighbor she did not like but had to be polite to. I stood on her porch for a minute after she closed the door. The donuts were getting warm in my hands. I left them on the step. I drove home and sat in my car in the parking lot of Oak Grove Village for 20 minutes before I could make myself go inside. That was when I started to feel it. The slow, cold, creeping feeling that something was very wrong. Not a suspicion yet, just a feeling. The same feeling you get when you are in your house alone at night and you are not sure if you locked the back door. Something is off. Something is not right, but you cannot name it. I called Emily. Emily said, "Mom, you need a lawyer." I said, "A lawyer for what?" Emily said, "I've been looking at the documents from the house transfer. Something does not add up. I am not an expert, but I think you gave away your house. Not to a trust, to Mark and Jessica, personally, individually. The trust was just paperwork. The deed transfers ownership to them as individuals. I said that cannot be right. Emily said I emailed the quitclaim deed to a real estate attorney in Portland, a woman named Karen Liu. She looked at it for free as a favor. She said, "You signed away your ownership interest in the property. You have no legal right to the house anymore. None. The rental agreement, the monthly payments, none of that is in writing. It is a handshake deal. A handshake deal with people who stopped shaking your hand." I hung up. I went to my closet. I found the copy of the papers I had kept in a manila folder on the top shelf behind Daniel's winter coat. I sat on my bed and read them. Every word, every initial, every signature. I read them 3 times. Then I read them again. Emily was right. I did not transfer my house to a family trust. I gave my house to Mark and Jessica, free and clear, no strings. No rental agreement, no monthly payments, nothing in writing. Just my signature on a page that said I was transferring all my right, title, and interest in the property to Mark Thompson and Jessica Thompson as joint tenants with right of survivorship. Right of survivorship. That meant if one of them died, the other would own the house. If both of them died, it would go to Samuel. It would never go back to me. Ever. No matter what. I signed away my house for nothing. I called Mark. He did not answer. I called Jessica. She did not answer. I drove to their house. It was a Tuesday evening in September. The sun was low and orange. Their minivan was in the driveway. Samuel's tricycle was on the lawn. I rang the doorbell. No one came. I knocked. No one came. I could see lights on inside. I could hear the television. I knew they were home. I knocked again, harder. The door opened. Mark stood there. His face was pale. He looked like a boy who had been caught stealing. Because he had been caught stealing. He just did not know it yet. I said, "I know about the house." He said, "Mom, come inside." I said, "I will not come inside. I will stand right here. You will tell me why you stole my house." He said, "We did not steal it. You gave it to us. You signed the papers." I said, "I signed because Jessica lied to me. She said it was for taxes. She said it was a trust. She said you would take care of me." He said, "We were going to take care of you." I said, "Then why did you stop sending the money?" He looked down at his feet. He was wearing socks with sandals. Daniel would have made fun of him for that. Daniel always said socks with sandals is what men wear when they have given up on life. I wanted to tell Mark that. I wanted to make him laugh. I wanted my son back. But my son was gone. The man standing in the doorway was a stranger wearing my son's face. He said, "Jessica handles the money." I said, "Where is Jessica?" "She is inside with Samuel." I said, "Tell her to come out here." "Mom, please do not do this." I said, "Do not do what?" "Do not ask for what is mine. Do not ask for the house your father and I worked 30 years to pay for. Do not ask for the roof over my head when I am 70 years old and my husband is dead, and my son is stealing from me." He started to cry. I did not care. I said, "I am going to talk to a lawyer tomorrow. I am going to get my house back. And if I cannot get my house back, I am going to make sure everyone knows what you and your wife did to me. Your father would be ashamed of you. Ashamed." I turned around and walked to my car. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the key in the ignition. I sat there for a minute. I looked at their house. The house Daniel built for us. The house where Mark learned to walk. Where Emily said her first word. Where we celebrated 30 anniversaries and 40 birthdays and 1,000 ordinary nights that I thought would never end. That house belonged to strangers now. And the strangers were my son and his wife. I found a lawyer, Helen, the one with the gray helmet hair and the glasses on a chain. She was not cheap. I paid her $5,000 from my savings. That was half of what I had left. The rest went to rent and groceries and the cardiologist I started seeing because my chest hurt all the time and I could not tell if it was my heart or just the breaking of it. Helen filed a lawsuit. She argued that Jessica committed fraud, that she misrepresented the nature of the documents, that she used her position as a financial planner and her relationship as a daughter-in-law to trick me into signing away my most valuable asset. She argued that Mark breached his fiduciary duty as my son, as someone I trusted implicitly. She argued that the transfer should be undone. The house should be returned to me. And if the house could not be returned because the tenants had rights, then Mark and Jessica should pay me the value of the house, $420,000, the price Daniel and I paid for it in 1988, the price it was worth now in 2021. Jessica countersued. She said I was a difficult, manipulative woman who had a history of mental instability. She said I was forgetful, confused, possibly suffering from early dementia. She attached a letter from my primary care physician, a doctor I had seen for 12 years, a doctor I trusted. He wrote that I had mentioned memory lapses during my last physical, that I had trouble remembering phone numbers and appointments, that he seemed anxious and depressed. He wrote that in his professional opinion, I might lack the capacity to manage my own financial affairs. I read that letter 20 times. I cried over it for 3 days. Because it was true that I was forgetful sometimes. I am 72 years old. I forget names. I forget where I put my keys. I forget what I walked into a room to do. That is not dementia. That is being old. But Jessica took those small, ordinary things and turned them into weapons. She made me look like a crumbling old woman who did not know what she was signing. She made herself look like a concerned daughter-in-law trying to protect the family from a crazy lady. It was brilliant. It was evil. It was exactly what I would have done if I were her. The case dragged on for 14 months. 14 months of depositions and motions and phone calls and letters and money bleeding out of my savings account like water from a cracked pipe. I sold Daniel's truck to pay Helen. I sold my wedding ring, the one Daniel put on my finger in 1979. I sold it to a jeweler in the mall, a young man with a nose ring who waited on a tiny scale and gave me $300. $300 for 41 years of marriage. I took the cash and bought groceries and paid Helen for another hour of her time. Emily came down from Portland to help me. She took me to court dates. She held my hand in the hallway. She bought me coffee and made me eat sandwiches, even when I said I was not hungry. She told me she loved me. She said, no matter what happens, I love you, and I am not going to let you be alone. She was my daughter. She was the one who lived far away, but she was the one who showed up. Mark did not show up. He sent Jessica. Jessica sat on the other side of the courtroom with her lawyer, a man named Bradley something. Expensive suit, expensive watch, expensive smile. He looked at me like I was a bug he wanted to step on. Jessica did not look at me at all. She looked at her phone. She scrolled through something. Instagram, probably. Pictures of Samuel in his Halloween costume. Pictures of their new kitchen remodel. Pictures of their life in my house. The house. The tenants moved out in the middle of the lawsuit. Mark and Jessica moved in. They painted the walls gray. They ripped out the kitchen counters Daniel had installed. They put in quartz, white quartz, cold and hard, and nothing like the warm butcher block Daniel had chosen because he said wood was honest and stone was pretending. They tore out the backyard garden I had planted with my mother's rose bushes. They put in a patio with a fire pit and plastic furniture. They erased me. They erased Daniel. They erased 33 years of our lives and replaced them with things from a catalog. The probate court ruled against me. Judge Margaret Hollister said there was not enough evidence of fraud. She said I was a competent adult when I signed the documents. She said I should have read them before signing. She said I should have consulted an independent attorney. She said my memory lapses and confusion were documented in my medical records. She said the transfer was valid. The house belonged to Mark and Jessica. I sat in the courtroom and listened to her read her decision. She had a calm voice, a kind voice almost. She said, I understand this is difficult for Miss Thompson, but the law is clear. A person cannot undo a voluntary transfer of property simply because they later regret it. Regret, that word. I did not regret signing the papers. I was tricked, lied to, manipulated by the people I loved most in the world. That is not regret. That is betrayal. There is a difference, but the law does not care about the difference. The law cares about signatures, and I signed. Helen filed an appeal. That was the phone call I was on when I was folding the blue towels. That was the motion to dismiss. That was the hearing on November 14th. That was the last chance I had to get my house back. The hearing was in the same courtroom, same judge, same gray carpet, same American flag in the corner, same smell of old paper and furniture polish. I wore my best dress, a blue one Daniel liked. He said blue brought out my eyes. My eyes are brown, but he said blue brought them out anyway. That was the kind of man he was. He said things that were not true because they were kind. Emily sat next to me. She squeezed my hand so hard I thought my bones would break. I did not tell her to stop. I needed to feel something other than the cold, hollow dread spreading through my chest. Jessica sat on the other side with her lawyer. She looked confident. She wore a black dress and pearls. Pearls, like she was Jackie Kennedy going to church, instead of a woman trying to steal her mother-in-law's house. She smiled at the judge. She smiled at her lawyer. She did not smile at me. The judge asked if there was any hope of settlement. Helen said no. Bradley said no. The judge nodded. She said she had reviewed the briefs. She had considered the arguments. She was prepared to rule. She ruled against me. She said the appeal lacked merit. She said the original decision was correct. She said I had failed to prove fraud or undue influence. She said I was an educated woman. I had been a school teacher for 32 years. I had managed my own finances for decades. I had no legal guardian, no power of attorney. No one had been appointed to make decisions for me. I made my own decision. I signed my own name. I gave away my own house. She granted the motion to dismiss. She granted sanctions, $5,000, attorney fees for Jessica's lawyer, because my appeal was frivolous, because I should have known I would lose. Frivolous. That word. Everything I had been through. Every night I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Every time I cried in the shower so Emily would not hear me. Every dollar I spent. Every piece of myself I sold. Frivolous. Like I had been playing a game. Like I had been wasting everyone's time. The judge stood up. She left the courtroom. The bailiff told everyone to rise. We rose. We stood there for a moment in silence. Then people started moving, gathering papers, zipping briefcases, putting on jackets. The machinery of the court grinding on to the next case. The next broken person. The next story that would not matter to anyone except the person living it. Jessica walked past me. She stopped. She turned. She looked me in the eyes for the first time in over a year. Her eyes were cold, flat, empty, like the quartz countertops she put in my kitchen. She said, "You will never touch that money again." Her voice was quiet, calm, like she was telling me the weather.
Like she was saying it might rain later, so bring an umbrella. She said it like it was a fact. Not a threat, not a victory, just a fact. You will never touch that money again. I did not say anything. I could not say anything. Emily started to speak, but I put my hand on her arm. I squeezed. I shook my head. There was nothing to say. No words that would undo what had been done. No words that would make Jessica feel shame or guilt or remorse. She did not have those feelings anymore. Maybe she never had them. Maybe she was always this person and I just did not want to see it. Because seeing it would mean admitting that I raised a son who would marry someone like her. And that was a pain I was not ready to feel. So I said nothing. I walked out of the courtroom with my daughter's hand in mine. We walked down the hallway, past the vending machines, past the water fountain, past the heavy wooden doors that led to the parking lot. The sun was bright, too bright. I put my hand up to shield my eyes, and I saw my hand, old, veiny, the skin thin like tissue paper, the hand that signed away my house, the hand that changed Samuel's diapers and cooked Mark's birthday dinners and held Daniel's face on the morning he died. That hand, empty now, holding nothing. Emily drove me home to the apartment, Oak Grove Village, the parking lot, the small kitchen, the closet that smelled like someone else's perfume, the bed where I slept alone, the television I watched alone.
The phone that did not ring. Emily made me tea. She sat on my couch. We watched a movie. I do not remember what movie. Something with actors I did not recognize. Something with a plot I could not follow. I just sat there, staring at the screen, thinking about the bird feeder in my backyard, the backyard I no longer had, the bird feeder Daniel filled every morning, the birds that came, the finches and the chickadees and the cardinals. Daniel loved cardinals. He said they were his mother's favorite bird. She died before Mark was born. He said cardinals are messengers from heaven. When you see a cardinal, it means someone who loves you is thinking about you. I used to see cardinals all the time in that backyard. I have not seen a cardinal since I left. Emily went home the next morning. She had to get back to Portland, to her husband, to her daughters, to her life. She hugged me for a long time at the door. She said she would call me tonight. She said she loved me. She said, "I am so sorry, Mom." I said, "It is not your fault." She said, "I know, but I am sorry anyway." I closed the door. I stood in my apartment. The silence was so loud I could hear the refrigerator humming, the clock ticking, my own heartbeat. I walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot. A woman was getting out of a Honda. She was my age, maybe older. She had gray hair and a cane, and she was carrying a bag of groceries. She struggled with the door to the building. I watched her for a moment.
Then I went to help her. Her name is Ruth. She lives 2 doors down. She is 81 years old. Her husband died 7 years ago. Her son lives in Florida. He calls her once a month. She says that is fine. She says he has his own life. She says you cannot hold on to people. They slip through your fingers no matter how hard you squeeze. I helped her carry her groceries to her apartment. She thanked me. She asked if I wanted to come in for coffee. I said yes. We drank coffee at her kitchen table. She told me about her husband, a man named Jerry, who sold insurance and loved to fish. She told me about the trips they took, the Black Hills, the Grand Canyon, a cruise to Alaska. She showed me pictures, old pictures, yellowing, the corners soft from being held. I did not tell her about my house, about Mark, about Jessica, about Samuel, who I have not seen in 2 years, about the grandson who used to sit in my lap and say, "Grandma, I love you," about the family I lost, about the money I will never touch again. I just drank her coffee and looked at her pictures and pretended I was a normal woman with a normal life, a woman who had not been destroyed by the people she loved most. That was 3 months ago. Today I am writing this in my apartment. It is raining outside. The parking lot is wet and gray. Ruth is watching television next door. I can hear the faint sound of her game shows through the wall. Emily called this morning. She said the girls asked about me. They want to come visit for spring break. I said that would be wonderful. I will buy snacks. I will clean the guest room. I will pretend everything is fine. Because that is what you do when you are 72 years old and your life has been taken from you. You pretend. You get up, you make your bed, you fold your towels, you answer the phone when your daughter calls, you help your neighbor carry her groceries, you keep moving because the alternative is to stop, and if you stop, you might never start again. I still have the key to the house, the old house, the one with the blue towels and the bird feeder and Daniel's workshop in the garage. I found the key in a drawer last week. I held it in my palm. It was small and gold and cold. I thought about driving over there just to see it, just to stand on the sidewalk and look at the gray paint and the quartz countertops and the fire pit on the patio where my mother's roses used to grow. I did not go. I put the key back in the drawer. I closed the drawer. I walked to the kitchen and poured a glass of water and drank it standing at the sink, looking at the parking lot. The rain was coming down harder now. The gutters were overflowing. A cardinal landed on the railing of my balcony. I stared at it. It stared at me. Then it flew away. And I stood there for a long time with the empty glass in my hand, wondering if Daniel was thinking about me, or if cardinals are just birds, and heaven is just a word we use to make ourselves feel better about the dark. You will never touch that money again.
She was right. I never will.